The women taken into Gaza were visibly assaulted, sexually and physically. It is not just about Israeli women. As women, we should remind the world that nothing justifies rape. Not any cause, not the Palestinian cause, not whatever Hamas wanted to achieve.
Shalom and welcome to another episode of In Our Neighborhood, a show where we focus on telling in-depth stories about what's happening here in the Middle East. And today's something a lot heavier than usual. We're sitting with Rawan Osman, who's been on a fact-finding mission to tell the world the truth about what happened on the events of October 7th and to raise concern and awareness to the young women who've been sexually assaulted and hurt both in the October 7th attack and then later on in Hamas captivity. And as someone who's a Muslim background Syrian Lebanese now living in Germany, she speaks internationally and has gone viral in recent months. So Rawan, first of all, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And I'm interested to hear, you said you're on a fact-finding mission in Israel right now. Tell us what brings you to the country.
We were invited by an organization called Elnet, and we came here to talk about sexual violence as a weapon of war on October 7th.
Yeah.
We have to highlight it and report back in our countries. I believe they come from 18 different countries. So we came here to meet survivors and hear testimonies of those who heard or saw first responders. We've seen footage. It is incredible.
Yeah. Just to frame the conversation. So we're now about a little over 7 months after the war started. And in October 7th, 8th, and afterwards inside the Gaza Strip, there were well-documented acts of sexual violence against Israeli women by Hamas terrorists and inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. And shortly after these acts were reported, and they were reported, I think, in the mass media in a very sort of tuned-down way, people started denying that any of it happened. I'm interested in this in two different angles. Why people would want to deny this, in your opinion? And two, why is it important to understand what really happened?
It's very hard to listen to their families, to listen to survivors, what they've been through, and after that, watch the news and people who challenge their narratives, they challenge their testimonies, or they accuse them of lying.
Yeah.
Feminists who accuse them of lying. This is shameful. We owe the Israeli women at least to listen to them, right? And then we can scrutinize. There are ongoing investigations. And bear in mind that we still have hostages taken captive by Hamas. The women taken into Gaza were visibly assaulted, sexually and physically. We don't know for sure what happened. And if we want to know, we need them back. We need them to return home. And we pray for that, all of us. We owe them to tell their stories. Plus, we cannot accept that sexual violence becomes normalized. One. Two, why is it denied? Hamas is denying it. It's absurd because they filmed and they broadcasted. They shared with the world. And immediately the world's response was,
It's not true.
It's not true.
Yeah.
Instead of condemning them and saying, no, it's a no-go, they were justifying or denying. And when the Hamas leaders saw this happening, they started denying it as well. In the Arab world, in general, the mood is Muslims don't do that. Hamas are too good. They are devout Muslims. They would never rape women. But we've seen what contradicts that.
Yeah.
The footage contradicts that. The video was released with the girls taking the soldiers, female soldiers, because we need to dehumanize them. These are soldiers. This is why they were beaten up, their mouth bleeding. I don't understand why. They're covered with blood, they're humiliated, their clothes are ripped, and the world says, no, it didn't happen. I can understand that the world says, we can't talk about rape until these girls return. But they're not even considering the possibility that these girls were assaulted probably sexually assaulted as well, because, as you mentioned, there are evidence. There are hostages who returned,
Yeah.
and they told horrific stories of what happened in the Gaza Strip.
I think on a moral conversation level, we're in a very bizarre place. In Western countries nowadays, trying to shame a victim is considered to be taboo on every level. Like you would never imagine in a press level, in an academic level, to come to a woman or a person who comes forward and says, I was assaulted, to say, no, you're a liar, bring proof. And here we're in this sick and perverted conversation where the Israeli government and foreign ministry and the army are having to release video footage proving that Hamas systematically sexually assaulted and planned to sexually assault, because it wasn't just a passing incident. Oh, one guy here, one guy there. Testimonials from the Hamas terrorists themselves saying, yes, we came with the knowledge that we were supposed to do this. We were supposed to, if we had the time, to rape, then mutilate, to then murder the women. It wasn't like an accidental event that took place in the way they're trying to present it.
طلعنا من البيت هو قال لي بعد ما طلعنا احنا قال لي قتلناه. طبعا طلعت لقيت مستوطن متخبي بالشجر.
The moral dissonance between, oh, this is not what good Muslims will do, so they didn't do it, where the evidence is, it is so overwhelming in that direction. How do people, I'm just having trouble understanding, how do they live within that tension?
We have to differentiate when we say how do people, which people. There is the West. Western values do not accept what we've witnessed on October 7th, supposedly.
In what sense?
We have a problem in the West I wasn't aware of until October 7th, where large numbers of people are justifying, denying, or they are aware of what happened. They just don't want to admit that it is a possibility because they're covering up for Hamas. Because according to large numbers, including people at the UN, UN women as well, saying that had the Israelis treated the Palestinians better, this wouldn't have happened. But this, what happened, shouldn't be acceptable or justified.
Period.
Like, we don't live in a jungle, period. Then there's a different problem in the Arab world among Muslims who know, who have seen what happened, and they say good Muslims wouldn't rape. Yes, but in Islam, those who were raped are not Muslim women. These are considered, in a situation of war, concubines. So the terrorists are free to prey on them. And the Muslims do know that. But is this the world we want to live in? Even those who accept that Hamas might have raped these girls, even if they accept it and justify it, do you really want them your neighbors if you have teenage daughters? They would tell you no. Exactly, that's the problem. We don't live in a jungle. Those who compare Hamas freedom fighters to the IDF soldiers, like, why do we criticize this or consider it terrorism, but what the IDF are doing is acceptable? Well, basically because this is an army following instructions. Even if they commit atrocities, accepting that the possibility they might do so, they can be held accountable. We know their names. We know their commanders, but what Hamas has done, who are these people and who will hold them accountable? If you are counting on the world to demand accountability, it's not going to happen. Look at Hamas leaders. They're traveling freely between Qatar, Turkey, Iran. This is unbelievable. You'd think, and I pray every day, I will wake up and I'll read that a wise leader decided to arrest Hamas leaders and force them to release the hostages and come to a solution. For the sake of the Gazans, forget the Israelis. For the sake of the Gazans, do it and stop this.
So you've been traveling through the land and hearing the testimonies, the stories of some of the people who've been assaulted, learning about the facts. What's the experience been like for you? Like meeting the people and sort of engaging with this horrific reality?
I'm going to tell you the story of Naama Levi's mom. For me, it was my top priority. I wanted to meet this mother and know how she gets out of bed in the morning. And I want her to tell the story on camera for Arabs to hear it. We added Arabic subtitles, and I wanted the Arab world to listen to this mom, to get to know who Naama Levy was. She was a peace activist. Not because her parents wanted her to. She truly believed in peace and had Palestinian friends. So well done, Hamas. They kidnapped their best allies. They were trying to kill, assassinate any hope for peace. Well done. Way to go. And I asked her mom, Ayelet, do you imagine working with Arabs? Can you forgive them? And she said, what do you mean? I'm a physician. I have Arab colleagues. I treat Arabs every day, and I don't need to forgive the Arabs. Maybe I can't forgive those who have done this to my daughter, but I have no problem with the Arabs, and I still believe in peace. Her daughter is taken hostage. She became the icon, unfortunately, the icon of sexual assault around the globe, and she still finds it in her heart to forgive them.
I think that's incredible that on the human level, that someone's able to like hold those two thoughts at the same time. The despair and the concern for the daughter, for her well-being, for the atrocities that have happened to her, and at the same time still be morally balanced enough to understand that there is a bigger picture.
I hope we can find the same in the Arab world. You don't have to have any understanding for the Israelis' story, narrative, for their aspiration for a Jewish state. But just accept that they are human beings and what happened is not acceptable. Or think about what Hamas has done and ask yourselves, what have they gained? What have they achieved? Nothing. It was pure evil, and we have to accept that there is objective evil in this world, and this is what this fight is against. This is why, when I say I stand with Israel after October 7th, tall and proud and loud, because this is not about Hamas and Israel. This is a war between our modern world and a backward death cult that's pulling us all down.
I think you bring a very powerful message. The lack of empathy to human suffering is highly concerning to me. How someone can, and again, like within all the politics of it and all, the history of it, so what? Put it all aside. How can you be blind to human suffering? So blind to human suffering that you're able to twist reality and ignore facts that are presented to you in the most compelling way and say, because this conflicts with my worldview, I choose to ignore it. I choose to have no empathy for human suffering. And I think that is a huge problem. And what you're doing is sort of highlighting, no, touch the humanity of it. Feel what's really going on here. Reconnect with like the maternal feeling that every woman carries, the paternal feeling that every father carries, to see someone suffering and care for them, whoever they are in the world.
What we've seen on October 7th is new and alarming. It uncovered a lot of hatred, monstrosity, and it's frightening because we do have children, and we just look at a sad future unless we stop it. This is why I invite everyone to take a moment to contemplate what happened. Is this the world you want to live in? And this reminds me of Second World War. Like, your neighbor is Jewish, they're being taken, maybe killed, but it's okay. You know these kids, and you think, but they're Jews, it's okay if they die. We are living that now. It's unbelievable. When I read the news on October 7th, I couldn't move for like 2 hours. I couldn't stop crying. And yes, I was watching Israeli victims, but I was always thinking, what on earth is going to happen now? I was thinking, if I was a mom in Gaza, waking up to the news, I would be petrified. You know what's coming. Hamas leaders said it repeatedly. Yes, we know, and we're prepared. Prepared how?
Prepared to sacrifice their population.
Exactly. You're hiding in tunnels, and your families population, your families are left exposed up there. If the IDF and Hamas swapped terrain, they would hide their population in the tunnels and the fighters will be above. And this is what happens in Israel. You have to have a safe room. You have to have a shelter. Building a tunnel is not easy.
Or cheap.
It's not cheap. It's not easy. They invested so much energy and money to build a sophisticated network. You're not doing a service to your own people. We've seen a lot of civilians cheering on the streets in Gaza, but we didn't see those who were frightened, petrified, hiding at home and thinking, how do I get out? How do I get out?
And I think that's the painful part of this entire story, is that it is legit to disagree over international policies. It's legit to have border disputes. It's understandable, it's human, it's normal. But, and this is a big but, this war, I think October 7th, was a moment of clarity for everyone involved in it, in seeing what the outcome of government, ideology, and religion are in this part. And you said it beautifully. You said, look at what Hamas has done with the Gaza Strip. Look at what ISIS did before that to your home countries. One mindset of radical Islam, of the policy that comes out of it, is a death cult. You said it, Douglas Murray says it beautifully. It's a death cult that breeds only death and destruction. The only thing it knows how to do is break down and destroy. The only thing it knows how to seed is violence and fear. Look, human blindness is going to exist one way or another, but you really have to choose to ignore the facts. And the facts are, look, this is what this breeds. It breeds death, it breeds destruction, it breeds fear, and it leaves nothing but charred earth behind it.
Exactly. It's interesting how the Shia and the Sunnis have this historical conflict. However, the agendas intersect when it comes to Israel. They just need the demise of Israel to live in peace. But which peace? Give us an example. Where? Which peace? What's your vision for the future? That said, we have to commend the decision makers, the leaders of UAE, of Bahrain.
I agree.
The leader of Bahrain, he had the moral clarity to condemn what Hamas has done. Islam can change. We need a reform. We need to bring it to this day and age. God gave us life, and it can't be that we seek death all the time. If they were living in a separate continent where they're minding their own business, then you'd say, okay, it's their culture, they're free. But they want to impose it everywhere, from New Zealand to Canada. And we cannot accept it because we owe our children and the future generations, we owe them better. And if we fight against it, it's going to be bloody, as we see now. Strangely, it's only like Israel and very few countries left in the world who understand the danger coming from that death cult, whether it's radical Islam among Sunnis or the League, the alliance led by Iran that systematically destroyed the Levant or the so-called Middle East. As a Syrian, and I'm half Syrian, half Lebanese, but as a Syrian, I never imagined in my life saying that I've witnessed something worse than what ISIS has done. We remember the executions, what they shared on YouTube. Hamas have showed us a new level of crazy, of evil, of backwardness.
ISIS was a relatively short-lived experiment, and it affected many, many people, but it never built a proper society. And Hamas, if you look at it over an extended period of time, now it's generations going back, had the time to radicalize its society and to really chip away at like the fundamental human values and experience that everyone should carry. And only if you look at it that way, you can sort of somewhat explain how they get to October 7th, how you get to a place where you not only are lacking shame, you take pride in brutality. You take pride in unhuman behavior. You take pride in the murder and the mutilation of the innocent. Even though everyone knows the facts, many people choose not to address the facts.
It's like speaking to zombies and reminding them, where were you on October 7th, 8th, 10th? They shared, like the footage was shared by Hamas. They were proud. this was a shock to the world. But after a few days, they realized, well, we did. The Israelis deserve it, and they got away with it. We had no alternative. We had no other choice. And unlike the case with ISIS, where there was a global consensus that we need to get rid of them, we need to obliterate them because this is scary, it seems that they paved the way for a new normal. They normalized brutality and broadcasting it on social media. And today we stand at a place where there is no consensus. The fact that we need to eliminate Hamas, or Hamas cannot carry on ruling the Gaza Strip. This is not going to happen. And you cannot reward them by telling them, okay, now you have a Palestinian state. Go ahead. You can control it. The world doesn't accept that. A lot of leaders in the West, they want them to stay. Why should they go? Well, maybe you should see the footage emerging from Gaza of Hamas executing their own civilians. Recently, shooting them in the kneecaps, in the heads, civilians who were guilty of stealing food. The humanitarian aid that Hamas confiscates, they're killing their own people because they got away with October 7th. They will not stop, and this is the new normal. I voluntarily give up the right to ever return to Lebanon and Syria.
Join us for part 2, where we dive deeper into Rawan's fascinating personal story.
I used to be an anti-Semite myself, and I realized that I was brainwashed. After October 7th, I took a decision in a heartbeat. I'm coming because I'm choosing a side.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.